This morning, we're in conversation with Phamotse, author of a book titled Bear, The Blesser's Game, which looks at stories of blessers and the sex lives of powerful South African politicians as well as businessmen. And she's in studio with us this morning. A very happy Sunday to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy Sunday. How are you?
I'm well. I'm so well. I was so excited to be chatting to you this morning because I thought, oh my goodness, what a brave woman. What made you decide to document this and tell these stories?
Well, South Africans we're a community that likes hiding things. And I just felt like a lot of things had happened to me, and I felt, okay, let me share the story with other girls and see where we are with this thing, you know, because I would hear a lot of girls disappearing, others dying, others trying to commit suicide, others fighting with politicians' wives because they're dating these people. And I said, okay, fine, let's find a way to resolve this social ill and see how deep it has gone and why is it so prevalent and why are young girls and young boys sleeping with older men for material things and what are the causes. So I just felt like if I tell it in a story, it will be more relatable.
So this is a world that you had been in.
Yes.
You'd seen things that were happening. Perhaps maybe tell us some of the most scariest stories. You talk about women disappearing, you talk about people's wives, you know, going crazy over their husbands being rogue or whatever. So tell us some of the most hectic stories that you've seen.
I mean, the biggest one is the one that I investigated in Durban, where a girl was mutilated for body parts for a powerful politician, so that politician can acquire more power in his seating or rankings. And the girl was 19, and she was just thinking that she's dating a person, and she was not sure what was going on in the relationship, but she didn't know that she was introduced into a sex cult, where they take young girls and then they date them or they sleep with them, however, and then at some point, girls are mutilated, they disappear, or they're introduced to all kinds of sexual cults that they do at night or in between. I mean, there was a point where the person that I had dated a while back, I think it was 5 years ago, he had forced me to sleep with him at a graveyard. And it was part of his way of what he done for his rituals to gain power in the political circles because he was a businessman. So it's all of those kind of things that I speak about most of the time when I speak about why I wrote Bear and what are the dangers that people go into, especially dating these people. I mean, even the issue of human trafficking happens in relationships where girls just trade themselves off and then after that they can't come back home to South Africa or they can't even get out the relationships because they have obligations to be traded for something or they need to do some sexual exchanges so that they can come back home.
I say this very carefully for lack of a better word to use or a better phrase. What kind of a girl gets attracted into this world? Is it unbeknown to you? Is it somebody who's coming from an impoverished background? Is it somebody who's just like, oh, well, it's a fun time? I mean, we've been seeing on social media where girls are apparently lured into a life of modeling, yet it's guised as prostitution or human trafficking.
Well, like anything else that is a social ill, there's levels to it. I mean, there's girls in Mthatha who are just doing it to survive. You know, they're just dating, whether it's a pastor or a policeman that's in their community just to get by because the parents are not involved in their upbringing. And then, but you would see in Johannesburg, particularly in Sandton, girls go into this relationship knowingly. And some of them go as far as plan or sort of target a certain person, whether they could be in politics or they could have money or it could be people who are in business. They go as far as targeting them. And as soon as they get the person, they start demanding certain things. I mean, there's a friend of mine who actually held a man hostage because she had known so much about him. And she said, oh, well, if you don't give me a certain thing, I will inform the media and your career will be finished. Sure. So it's those kind of things. I mean, there's girls in other countries who see South Africans doing this. For instance, I was in Kenya a week ago, and I found out that there was other girls who see our artists here in South Africa and say, well, I'm targeting that particular artist because if I'm married into South African social circle, I would have bigger continental power. So it goes beyond just us dating each other. It's about what you can bring me that will increase my social standard or my social circle or even bring me more money, because others date so that if they're dating someone, they're invited to all kinds of business dealings, you know, because they are involved or associated with someone. So it really goes far beyond the naked eye can see, because it's not just you dating a person who can give you material things. It's also psychological, it's also spiritual, it's also business. People date now because they want to be seen in a certain light with certain people. So
I guess it's an age-old thing, but when you hear the level of detail, that is what is scary. I mean, going to a cemetery and someone, you know, forcing to have sex at a cemetery, you just don't understand those things. So when you look at the blessers, these uncles who lure these women into this life, you mentioned politicians and you mentioned businessmen. These are men of influence.
Yes.
Would you say that these women or girls who've disappeared, or stories that we don't even hear about, this sort of gets perpetuated and exists because these are powerful men and we'd never pick it up?
Absolutely. I mean, men who've got lots of money have lots of resources to hide their dirt. And should you know a little bit too much, they make you disappear. Should you threaten to leave them, if they don't want you to leave them, they make you disappear. Or if they are so obsessed with you at a particular time and you're not willing to give out what they want, they make you disappear. And they've got the resources to make it happen. I mean, it's either they pay somebody to assassinate you, they pay somebody to poison you, or they just take you in a body bag and make you disappear and you never come back. How many instances or cases we have seen where girls just disappear from nowhere? A girl was in varsity and 2-3 weeks later they can't be found. So we see this all the time.
My heart skips a beat, and not in a good way. Advice to young women, because now it's like you mentioned earlier, be seen in the latest clothes and the latest hair and the latest this and the latest that. For somebody who sees a job post that says we're looking for women to give people a nice time, so all you'll be is just company, is there such a job?
There's nothing like that. I mean, it scares me at some point that even girls would even send their naked pictures for an interview, or say, well, I saw this particular post, I would like to send my bra, or I'd like to send my bum, or whatever the case may be, where that's the first thing they sort of auction themselves for, you know. It's really it's heartening. I find it very sad, because if you say to me, to get a job, I need to show you my body, that means you care nothing about my brain, you care nothing about my ability or skill. So I would really just not even take the job at all.
Are there girls that actually want to do this? And it's fine. Like, you see the job spec and you're like, what's wrong with this? It's fine. Do you find that there's girls who actually are okay to do this? Are there people who are blindsided, or are there people who go into this knowingly and saying, well, this is what I choose?
Girls like playing dumb. Because even after reading the book, they were still like, can I still go to the hockey club? Can I still find a blesser? How do I do it? Inboxing me, a person who's against this, you know? So girls like testing things, and it looks like the more we speak about it, it's the more they want to do it. I don't know why.
What's the hockey club?
Oh my. Hockey club is a secret society that I also speak about in the book, where there's different kinds of places that I mentioned, but the one that everybody knows is the one in Bryanston. It's a house where all these rich people and all these
Bryanston.
Konala. It's all these where these rich people entertain themselves, where young boys sleep with older men, and girls sleep with older men, and there's all kinds of sexual transactions. You would see these slay queens and slay kings who don't have an actual profession posting that they're going to Dubai, they are flying with private jets, they have the best clothes, they drive the fanciest cars. But when you do a lifestyle audit, everything they have acquired does not amount to what they really make, or if they do have a job at all. So it's things like the hockey club, where a politician or a rich man would say, you're a socialite, can you hook me up with 4 or 5 girls for this particular thing, and then we'll pay you for that? Or can you hook me with your wife? I want your wife. Are you willing to trade your wife for 300,000? Or can you hook me with a celebrity that can entertain me, and then I will give you a fee for that? So, I mean, there's a lot of people on social media who are doing it and then pretending to have PR companies or communications companies and things like that, where those things don't really exist. They are trading off their friends and other girls on social media for their own personal gain.
I just want to go back a couple of points. What attracted you to that world? Did you know?
To that world?
Into it.
I didn't know about the world. I dated somebody who had money, and he introduced me to that life. And because at the time I was a model, so being a model can be extremely demanding because you have to look a certain way, you have to dress a certain way. If you're not around a certain social circle, you're sort of ostracized. And that particular person, because of the influence he had, he knew almost everybody who had some kind of power, whether it's political, whether it's celebrities, whether it was private businesses. So he sort of mingled or maneuvered me into that world where I saw all of the things that I speak about in Bear, which is
and
horrific.
now you've literally laid bare all of these
I
things.
have.
Do you not fear for your life?
I have been fearing for my life for a very long time, but I just got to a point where I've accepted my responsibility and what I have set myself up for. In December, between December and February, I was in a safe house for the longest time. I hated it. It was like being in a jail cell. I couldn't move, I couldn't communicate, I couldn't do anything just because I was speaking openly about certain things in the book, the rape that I went through in 2007, and many other things. Even the people who owned the hockey club were a little bit uncomfortable that I was speaking about their private society. So I had to be in a safe house. But going forward, I have experienced one or two death threats. I've experienced people trying to push me off the road.
You don't mention names in the book, but I guess it's
I
just
don't.
the idea that
You know when
actually
people know
expose
what they have done and what they do, they're always sitting on the edge thinking that this girl
Something is
might
coming
just
for me.
say something. And because when you know you are on the top, you're in everybody's radar and all your colleagues know what you do anyway, they start pointing fingers that, are you aware Jackie's speaking about this thing? Are you aware? Are you aware? So it does make them uncomfortable. So being in that position of power, you don't want anything to sort of rift you off from your seating. So you will try to protect yourself in all kinds of ways. So because we live in South Africa, death threats are common, you know, whether you're a journalist, whether, right?
Right.
They come all the time, depending on who you're targeting. And, well, I'm a mix. I mean, I speak about politicians all the time and the things that they do. I speak about people who have high influential power in terms of money and business in South Africa. And those people don't want to be exposed for the deeds that they do to young girls. And the young girls will not speak because they're thinking, oh my, this person's a billionaire, is a millionaire. If I were to say anything, I'll be dead by 12 o'clock midnight. I cannot expose this person at all. My life would be finished. So I just took a stand that I just said, I'll just speak about it openly, just to make people aware of what's really going on.
What does that do to you psychologically?
It does damage you. As a matter of fact, I called my mentor, Tabang, and I said, I need to see you urgently. This was a day ago, actually. I said, I needed to see you urgently because when you're dealing with so many people, I mean, I've got a foundation that deals with girls who are rape victims, others were human trafficked, others just have social ill problems. And I've got people who inbox me all the time wanting advice. And it does take a toll on you because it's something that has happened to you that you're still dealing with, and you're still dealing with other people's problems at the same time. So you find that it does weigh on your emotional being a lot. And I go to therapy a lot. I speak about my issues a lot, and I'm not one to shy away when something is hurting me or when something's sitting uncomfortable with me. So I do make that call to my psychologist or my mentor and say, I need to see you.
So still like dealing with it.
I'm still dealing with it.
How big a problem is, you know, when you're growing up, they say,
Yes.
loosely translated, a
Yes.
man with money is, you know, is good, or so such phrases in fueling sort of this life or these things that happen. Are you ultimately saying that ladies stay away from rich men? There's like a world veiled in, like, you know, secrecy and craziness and whatnot.
Well, I'm not saying stay away from rich men. You can fall in love with whomever you want to fall in love. But it's better to have your own before you get into anything.
1000%.
You know, it's really better to secure your own life before you are in somebody else's life. So education, work, having your own identity within any kind of relationship, whether the guy is poor, you're poor, they're rich, you're rich. Having your own identity is much more important than you thinking that sitting with a person that has money automatically rubs off on you. It does not happen that way. You cannot sit with a doctor and automatically think you're a doctor. You're not. You know,
That's
so having your own
yes.
identity, having your own resources, so that even if you want to leave at some point, you are able to leave without you debating with yourself, if I leave, will I be able to sustain myself? Just having shelter or having something to eat. But it is always, always vital to sustain yourself first before you put somebody else's life as insurance for your own life.
Jackie, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming through to chat to us, and thank you for your bravery. And even though there's so much that is happening with you,
There's still a lot,
bringing
yes.
truth to light where this
Yes.
is concerned, we support you 100%, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all the South Africans that do support me and who vouch for what I do and who listens, and the girls who are still trying to figure it out and getting out of these horrible relationships. I mean, we have seen so many girls who have passed on the last 2 weeks. So let's just
How
be
do you
very
get out? How do you get out? Because you're saying that you're thinking, if I do
you
get
have
out,
to
I'm
you
going
have
die
to
by
force
myself.
yourself, because living in a luxurious world can be an obsession, an addictive obsession as well. So you just need to tell yourself you have to get out some way or another and find another way of living, because it's just simply not sustainable
At all.
but thank you.
Much to say after that. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
so
through.
much.
Jackie Phamotse is the author of Bear, the Blesser's Game.